Welcome and aloha to the Progress City Radio Hour. My name is Michael Crawford. With me, as always, my brother Jeff. Jeff, aloha to you.
Aloha. Some, you know what? Christmas in old Hawaii. Aloha to you. It's a lovely. You know, there's precedent for this. It's a good time to go.
Absolutely. Holiday Hawaiian style. Holiday in the islands. Yes, as you might tell, we are having a very tropical theme for this episode. We're going to be talking about Disney's brushes, some of them at least, with the South Seas, Jeff.
Yes, and Michael, I would say, as rubes that we were, our brushes with Disney were our first brushes with the South Seas, and we had a little a poo-poo platter of our own of exposure to the islands from our Disney experiences, both on the screen and in person.
Yes, and this goes back to what I love and will forever love about the Disney that we grew up with, is that it was a window onto the world. It was a window into so many other things, not Disney. And I always find myself asking myself, do I love this thing not only because it's awesome, but because I was exposed to it first through Disney? Because that applies not only to this, to the spirit of aloha, but to just so many other things, because that's what Disney did at the time. It was a window to the world.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I have this conversation often with people who are puzzled, not having the context of this kind of Disney that was, and I explained that it was like a curated amalgam of interesting topics and cultural things and artistic disciplines, all kind of served together and kind of anthologized, and it was a delight. And yes, we've learned much about the world through our experience with Walt Disney Productions.
Exactly. I mean, people scoff, I think, at the idea of edutainment, but that's exactly what it was. It's so many entertaining things that also inform you and open your eyes to like bigger possibilities and broader opportunities in the world. And I just think that goes back to Walt, who was just interested in everything and made this company a way for him to explore the things that he was into. It wasn't, what's good marketing and what's this and what's that. It's, what do I think is cool? Let's do something about that.
Yes, and the kind of sense of curiosity and play. And he was a voracious reader, and all of that reflected in the company during his life and during the lives of the people who worked with him, particularly.
Right. Yeah, because he wasn't the only one. I mean, you think about all these guys were, they always say Renaissance people, men and women. I think somebody like Herbie Ryman, who traveled the world and had all this vast experience and had seen all these things, and comes back from Asia with all his paintings of things. And everybody had just such amazing firsthand experience or an interest in the world. And it really shows in the product.
Yes. And things have kind of, it's just, yes.
Yes,
and
indeed.
I mean, a lot of it, I think, you wonder how much of it too is, in the world of themed entertainment, the post-war U.S., where there is a lot of, you think of soldiers who have seen the world, they're coming back, things like Polynesia. These are are things that people are bringing back with them. There's all kinds of food and little seeds brought back. And so Disneyland is absorbing all of that in the larger culture and synthesizing it in its own right.
Yeah, it's such an interesting period because, I mean, for all the horrors of war, it did have this effect of opening people's eyes to things that, the country was just so different before the wars and after, where people just never left their town or never left their region, and all of a sudden they're on the other side of the world. So how are you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Tahiti? It's going to change things.
That's absolutely right.
So obviously, as you say, it's in the culture after the wars, right about the same time that Walt is starting up thinking about these parks that he's going to do. So it casts a long shadow. It casts a long shadow well up into our time, coming onto the scene and coming onto the parks. And even today in the parks, it's still a trope that lives on and thrives. So what we're going to talk about today, this aspect, there's enough to talk about for multiple episodes, but what are we going to talk about this time around?
Oh my gosh, there is so much to talk about. And in fact, one would think with our context and our background, we would talk about the Polynesian resort, but we're not going to, Michael. Well, I mean, we'll mention it a little bit, but we need to go back to the roots of this thing. We got to talk about Walt Disney himself. We got to check in with Walt, don't we?
That's right. He was a globetrotter, and part of that globetrotting hit up these islands. He was there.
Right. Yeah, and talk about some of his trips and kind of the genesis of his enchantment with that world, because it certainly was a driving force and the creativity that would come later. And so we got to talk about that. We also should probably speak of kind of the most prominent, one of the signature Disney attractions, and it is in this theme. It's the Enchanted Tiki Room.
Yeah, a real watershed moment in the theme park industry as a whole, and certainly in Walt's career and in the technology of audio animatronics and all of that. And it stands out. I think you're right, as one of those iconic Disney park experiences.
And finally, I get hungry. I'm a little bit of a peckish sort. So, and I love a good entertaining review. So we got to go next door and catch the Tahitian Terrace. Michael, I always lament I did not see the Tahitian Terrace when it was in bloom. I really would have enjoyed that, I think.
Yes, I always envied them that they had this show out there. And of course, we never got to see it, which is a great shame because everything about it just sounds perfectly wonderful.
It does. So, are you on island time yet, Michael?
I am. It's Tropic Standard Time here where I am. So I'm ready.
Okay.
Well, let's kick things off. See what Walt's doing. You never know where he's going to turn up. It's well known that Walt Disney was a workaholic, but even with his busy schedule, he did manage to take the occasional vacation. Often these trips wound up being working vacations, as his overactive imagination was always on the look for new opportunities and story ideas. And of course, as one of the world's most famous filmmakers, he was constantly in demand for public appearances as well as brushes with local dignitaries. Jeff, Walt was a big-time traveler, especially in the sort of steamer age, I feel like he was all over the place.
He was, and he was like busy collecting all those certificates and keys to the city and like flowers and all of the things, all kinds of again, at the Disney Family Museum, I feel like we mentioned this quarterly, but like there's that room full of like declarations, and he had to go collect those and then like give him a Mickey Mouse doll or something.
Yes, absolutely. And make him nervous about having to draw Mickey Mouse for like some school kids or something.
I don't draw much anymore.
I don't know, fellas. That room at the museum was the exact, when you mentioned those awards, I thought of that room because it's, the mayor of La Paz says, right. Walt Disney is king for a day or whatever. It's good stuff. But
and always, like you said, he was a sponge, man. He was always, that's where the monorails came from for one. We talk about that all the time, and everything he saw came back to some trip he was on, more or less. It just seems like in this Disneyland phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Lily grinding her teeth because he's gonna go look at the monorails.
The train store. Yeah.
Well, back in 1934, Walt and his wife Lillian made their first voyage to Hawaii. Remembering that at this point, Hawaii was still several years away from becoming a state, which is strange to think about. It wasn't that long ago. Its exotic delights had already begun to cast a spell on the American imagination. And as was typical with Walt, as you say, the impressions he would bring back from Hawaii would influence the studio's output for years to come. Walt and Lily set sail for Hawaii on August 10th, 1934. They had booked passage on the Lurleen, which I love, a very down-homey name for one of the premier luxury ships of the Matson line. Matson is still an operational company, by the way. I was surprised to see. They got their start in the 19th century, providing passenger and freight service between the west coast of North America and Hawaii, and later to destinations beyond in the South Pacific. Today, they are strictly a cargo company, but they were instrumental in driving Hawaiian tourism during the period when Walt visited. Look up their website. They've got quite a history section on their website. It is very hire for hire in the early days. Like, we'll get you to the islands on time. And then, now it's just, we are massive shipping container company.
Huh.
So
interesting.
It's an interesting history there. After a stop in San Francisco, the Lurleen crossed the Pacific, arriving in Honolulu on August 16th. Walt and Lily were booked to stay at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, which then was also part of the Matson Empire. They owned hotels as well as cruise ships and other things. Founded in 1927, the Royal Hawaiian also still exists today. It is known as the Pink Palace of the Pacific, which I also recommend you look it up because it's pretty amazing. A very beautiful structure, and the Pink Palace of the Pacific. How can you?
I just keep thinking of the King Kamehameha Club at Magna PI.
Exactly right. Well, Walt's arrival in Hawaii was a big deal and was heavily covered in the local press. A photo of him and Lily arriving, each draped in leis, actually made the front page of the Honolulu paper. He had no sooner set foot ashore, went one report, than he was besieged with invitations to go here, go there, to meet this one and do that for someone else. Walt, however, insisted that he was just there to relax. He told one paper, "I don't want to do anything except to lie on the beach in the sun and wiggle my toes in the sand."
My man.
Yeah. That's the life. He knows what's up. But as with most best laid plans, Walt's agenda quickly changed, and as always, his social calendar began to fill up. He was originally scheduled to spend only one night in Honolulu before sailing to Hilo, but Walt opted to stay there for several more days so the Disneys could attend a charity baseball game on Saturday, August 18th. The game was part of the Army's baseball championship series between teams representing Fort Schaefer and Wheeler Field. The inspiration for Mr. Wheeler.
I was going to say.
I can only assume, yes. As part of the festivities, there was also a display of aerial acrobatics by Army pilots. Remember, this was before the foundation of the Air Force, so pilots were all in the Army Air Corps. So I can only imagine what a scene this was.
Going to Army.
I'm going to Army, Lily. Yeah. So Walt agreed to make a personal appearance at Honolulu's Princess Theater on Saturday morning before the baseball game. This was in the days when theaters across the country had regular meetings of the local Mickey Mouse Club in their region, so Walt dropped in for one such gathering. According to historian Michael Barrier, the program that day was slated to include cartoons, an episode of the Buck Jones serial, and a performance by, quote, pretty little Vera Fern, who was also known as Miss Acrobat. So, little Vera Fern put on a show.
Who says the Mickey Mouse Club didn't know how to throw a party?
I know, that is, and what a party it was. It was a draw. Walt was unsurprisingly a huge draw. There was an overflow crowd. A second theater, the Liberty, was called on to handle the spillover. So Walt was standing room only, and then some.
Holy cow.
He made an appearance at both venues. According to one local paper, Walt asked the rapt crowd, "Would you like Mickey to come to Honolulu on a surfboard?" The kids went berserk, naturally. Walt said, "I am pleased and happy to be here. I am glad to see this enthusiasm for Mickey. When I go back, I will make a Mickey on a surfboard, as I have been on and off one since coming here, and I know just how he feels.
I'm going to Mickey on a surfboard.
Before this decade is out, I will make a Mickey on a surfboard and do the other things." So Walt's statement jives with Diane Disney Miller's reports of family films showing Walt and Lily out trying to surf, if you can imagine such a thing. Apparently, Lily was much better at it than Walt. Diane said that Walt was cutting capers, which is unsurprising. So, seems obvious by now that he was collecting experiences to inform future projects. He told one reporter, "I'm going to look around while we are here, of course. If any good ideas suggest themselves, we may put Mickey into a Hawaiian locale. Perhaps on a surfboard, but not unless Mickey proves himself a good swimmer. I understand you have to go out a mile to catch a good surf."
Dude, leave the surfboard out of this for a second.
Yeah, really.
Chill out about the surfboard.
Yeah. I can't even tell you about Mickey and a surfboard, but it's going to happen. On August 23rd, Walt and a Texas congressman, Fritz Lanham, who was also visiting the island, went to Fort Shafter to witness a thorough demonstration of modern anti-aircraft equipment. Present for Walt's tour was Brigadier General Robert S. Abernethy, who Walt had previously met at some of the events earlier. Walt and Lily began their trip back to California aboard the Matson luxury liner Malolo on Saturday, August 25th. They made it back to Los Angeles 7 days later on the 1st of September. This trip only marked the beginning of Walt's relationship to Hawaii and the South Pacific. True to his word, he brought Mickey and the entire Fab Five to Hawaii in the short cartoon Hawaiian Holiday in 1937. He got Mickey on a surfboard. It happened.
Mickey on a surfboard, ladies and gentlemen.
It only took a couple of years, yeah. In 1939, he returned to Oahu with Lily, his brother Roy, and sister-in-law Edna, and their collected children Diane, Sharon, and Roy E. In 1948, Walt and the family again boarded the SS Lurleen. Must have been a popular ship. They traveled back to Honolulu for another stay at the Royal Hawaiian. And nearly 2 decades later, in October of 1962, the Disneys ventured further into the Pacific for visits to Bora Bora, Papeete, Tahiti, Pago Pago, Nandi, Fiji, and again Hawaii. In May 1965, the gang returned to Kauai in Hawaii for the filming of Lieutenant Robin Crusoe, USN, the Disney-produced comedy featuring Dick Van Dyke and Nancy Kwan. Along for the trip were daughter Diane and her husband Ron Miller, as well as 5 of their children. Disney producer Bill Walsh and his family were there too, as was the Van Dyke clan. This was most likely Walt's last trip to the islands, but the spirit of the South Seas would live on in future Imagineering output.
Amigos down there, it is me up here. Amigos, Romans, and Disneylanders. Stop walking while I'm squawking. Caramba, we have something really big for you today. It is the world premiere of Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. It is Disney entertainment at its most exciting, best kind. You wait for the show right here below me, in the Magic Garden, where the gods and goddesses perform. Get your tickets right over here for Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. This has been a recording.
They call me Tangaroa-Roo, the East Wind.
And I am Hina, goddess of rain.
We often travel together, wind and rain, through tropic lands across the 7 seas.
Come closer, so that you may see what magic there is in fantasy.
Few elements of the Disney canon are more closely tied to the romance of Polynesia than the world-famous attraction Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. Found in 3 locations around the world, this audio-animatronic theatrical show has been bringing to life a musical luau since 1963. Jeff, we love the Tiki Room.
We do. We really do. And, man, the room itself alone, but all its iterations and, gardens and mythos, it's high Disney art.
Absolutely. It's one of those, if I won lotto and was a crazy billionaire, then one of the things I would do was just build the room itself. I don't even need the show. I just want the room built onto my house somewhere.
I could see that.
It is just pure atmosphere, and it's so good. This iconic piece of American mid-century exotica has its roots far from the South Seas. It all allegedly got its start several years earlier in New Orleans. As the story goes, on one of their antiquing trips to the Crescent City, Walt and Lily found an intriguing relic, a vintage mechanical bird in a gilded cage, which would turn its head, flap its wings, and open its beak to whistle. Walt purchased the bird and brought it back to the studio, where he showed it to some of his technicians. And this kicked off a series of events which would change the themed entertainment industry forever. Now, we all know that Walt Disney was obsessed with technology and with miniatures, so it's no surprise that he took a shine to the little bird. Have you ever seen this bird? They trot it out for exhibits and things often.
Well, and haven't they put it in his remade office of late?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yes, it is unassuming at best, but yeah, quite the thing. I mean,
But very
what
cool. When you imagine
cool.
the miniaturization technology needed at
Yeah,
the time it was made.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Because it's not a size of a tiki bird. It is a size of a little bird.
Right, a songbird.
A songbird, yeah. It's quite amazing.
It is.
Quite real. Upon examining the antique, Walt's technicians began to explore how to build other miniature figures which could move realistically. And by 1951, machinist Roger Brogy and sculptor Wathel Rogers were working on Project Little Man. I'm a big fan of Project Little Man.
Yeah.
The purpose of this experiment was to create a 9-inch tall figure of a dancing man who could also talk. And this all got tied up into Walt's Disneylandia plans as well, back when it was to be a series of miniature vignettes. Now, we've talked about all this in the past. I love Walt's obsessive idea of just a touring series of miniature things.
Yeah, it's like he was developing that and like the Mickey Mouse Park kind of as different things, and they kind of became one thing. But yeah, you wonder, it's a little miniature. Come look at, but again, it's just like this. It goes to the Mickey Mouse Club. It's like a different time. Like, people would come out and greet the circus when the trains would bring it to town. So it's like it's a different rhythm that we. I mean, there are traveling exhibitions today. Yeah. Why not the little miniature display, I ask?
Well, yeah, why not Walt's handmade, right. Granny's
cabin, yeah,
or whatever it is. Yeah, it's just I love his obsession with miniatures, because I think a lot of people who are into all this theme park stuff are also obsessed with miniature things of different types. I don't know what the appeal is, but I feel it myself.
Well, it's like world making, right? It's the same kind of thing that you do with a theme park on a giant scale, but a more manageable, and like the layperson can do it.
That is a great point. That is a really good point, because it is, you can build your own themed world, and it's something that you, Joe Dokes, can do yourself actually do it. Right?
But I'm sure for him, like, I mean, we just talked about him not wanting to draw, getting nervous about drawing, like to be able to do something with his hands and to not rely on a whole team of people, I bet was like really exciting for him.
Yeah.
Like
and not have to get permission to do it either.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Well, soon plans had changed. The miniatures went out the window, and Disneyland sprung to full scale, or almost close to it, life. And Walt's automaton projects found themselves on the back burner as the rush to open and then expand the park took most of the studio's attention. There were moving figures at Disneyland, of course, seen most notably in the Jungle Cruise. But these were not yet audio animatronics. They were crude electromechanical figures based on a cam and lever system that enabled them to make simple, repetitive motions, like nodding a head up and down, things like that. But they weren't very complex, and they required a lot of back of the house support systems that didn't make them easy to show. They were hiding in the bushes for a good reason. Soon the idea of a more complex dimensional animation emerged again. After Project Little Man, Roger Brogy had suggested that life-size figures might actually prove easier to pull off technically than miniatures. So by 1959, work had begun on a full-scale human figure. Around that time, Walt had hoped to build a Chinatown area adjacent to Main Street at Disneyland, with a Chinese restaurant as its central feature, and it was suggested that the new figure might be adapted into a full-size representation of the Chinese philosopher Confucius. The figure would hold court in the restaurant, interacting with guests and dispensing wisdom. I wish this had happened so bad.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? And what a bizarre turn that is, like the detour in and out of this. It's just like, that would have been really weird.
Yes. It is just so funny to think like the entire industry came through the Tiki Room,
right.
which came through the Chinese restaurant with Confucius.
Mm-hmm.
It just all sprung from that. It's so funny to me. And I just can't imagine how amazing this team of Imagineers building a Chinatown themed area would have been. Just visually would have been amazing.
Truly.
Well, the concept for the restaurant developed. The planned show became more elaborate. Disney hoped Chungking would sponsor the facility, which would feature an hour-long dining experience and show. I love Chungking, those little chow mein noodles from our youth.
Yes.
Eventually, the concept expanded to involve a fire-breathing, joke-telling dragon, which I would love to see.
That's a better idea.
That's great. And most relevant to our story, dozens of mechanical singing nightingales in cages, which would surround Confucius as an homage to the story The Emperor's Nightingale. This would have been very vibe central, man. This place.
Artistic.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. The Confucius concept fell through sometime in 1960, it seems, and Imagineers turned their thoughts to creating a figure of Abraham Lincoln, because, if you can't have Confucius, you get Abe. Walt had long planned a Liberty Street area of Disneyland, which would include a Hall of Presidents of the United States, and Lincoln was to be the prototype for that concept. Now, you can find out more about that project way back in episode 4 of this podcast, but the end result was that audio animatronics became a viable technology at last. And although Lincoln would make a splash at the New York World's Fair in 1964, audio animatronics would make their official debut a year earlier in Disneyland with the Enchanted Tiki Room. Now, Polynesian culture had captured the American imagination during the post-war years and really boomed when Hawaii joined the Union in 1959. So strong was the lure of the islands that Walt's restaurant show soon made the jump from China to Polynesia when Imagineer John Hinch was assigned to come up with a concept of a Tiki Tea Room, a facility serving light snacks and beverages with a show featuring colorful tropical birds in cages above the diners. A tea room is such a mid-century concept. I love that.
I know. And man, bring it on.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Little sandwiches and things.
Yeah, just little sandwiches. Exactly.
Exactly. As Rolly Crump would later tell it, Walt looked at Hinch's drawings and said, "John, we can't have birds in this restaurant." When Hinch asked why not, Walt replied, "Because birds will poop in the food." Hinch pointed out that the birds would be mechanical instead of live, and Walt was sold.
He's always a man of instinct. Great instinct.
Yes, that's a good call, Walt. In 1961, Walt went to Cleveland to meet with Vernon Stouffer of Stouffer's Foods to discuss sponsorship opportunities at Disneyland. As a result of these negotiations, Stouffer's signed on to sponsor a trio of dining locales in the park, including the Tiki Tea Room, which now had a new name. As Disney explained in a 1962 issue of their Vacationland magazine, quote, Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, one of 3 new restaurants at Stouffer's in Disneyland, and Disneyland's first by reservation only dining space, may steal the spotlight from the other new attractions. For Walt Disney is bringing together all the talents of his Imagineers to create a complete dinner show performed by an exotic collection of birds, flowers, and Polynesian tikis that actually sing, talk, and act. Many new animation techniques, developed exclusively for Disneyland, will bring to life the birds, idols, and flowers. And lest you think it's not possible for inanimate objects to sing and act, just remember that this dinner show is based upon legends and myths treasured for centuries by the natives of the South Pacific. Stouffer's, one of America's foremost restaurateurs, will also open European and American kitchens in its Plaza Pavilion, facing Main Street, and a Tahitian Terrace overlooking Adventureland. The latter will feature nightly dancing and South Seas entertainment. So they were really selling that Stouffer connection.
I know. I was going to eat some mac and cheese in the Tiki Room.
I know. None of them suitable locations for lasagna, sadly.
That's right. Well, the European kitchen.
The European kitchen could probably pull that off. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it could be, fusion cuisine.
That's right. They're like a Wolfgang Puck.
Anyway, you can see that from this, the template for the show was developing quickly. It was planned that diners would make reservations for an hour-long dining slot. And after they enjoyed their Polynesian meal, the room would come to life around them for a musical finale during dessert. During testing on the Disney lot, though, it was discovered that people would be so enraptured by the show that their dining would come to a halt and they wouldn't finish their meals in the time allotted. Turnover for this small restaurant would be so slow as to be impractical, so the idea was abandoned. And it is really crazy to me they had the facility in mind as it is now, and that is tiny for a restaurant.
And I wonder, this is just such an interesting thing, because you would think today they would not miss a chance to do that, to make it a restaurant, even if it was small.
Yeah.
But yeah, just thinking about how many more people they could get into it being an attraction. But that's an interesting calculus to think about. I wonder who made that call, and, how that went about would be an interesting.
Yeah, this detail. Has the very vibe of early sort of Walt thinks it's cool, so it happens for a while. Like, what if we put in this? What if we put in this? And then somebody runs the numbers and just thinks, oh no, that's not going to work.
It's a tiny, tiny place.
Tiny place, exactly, and with hour-long reservations. So yeah, I'd love to see the numbers on it, because I bet they're pretty entertaining. Well, even though the Tiki Room abandoned its culinary ambitions, there were some lingering relics of the original plans. Chairs had already been purchased for the restaurant. These were welded together into rows and served as the show's seating for 40 years before they were replaced by benches.
Wow.
Which I was unaware of.
I did not know that either. That's far out. Bizarre.
So weld them together, boys. Amazingly, the kiosk at the center of the theater housing the Magic Fountain was originally meant to be the restaurant's busing station. Still features compartments for storing silverware and other items. The original restaurant plans also explain why the Tiki Room had its own private restrooms located out front. Love those restrooms.
Yeah.
Although they've seen some changes in recent years, but still classic Disney restrooms. And even with the concept for the show nailed down, Imagineers had to figure out how to make it work. And despite the fact that the Tiki Room was allegedly rooted in ancient Polynesian lore, it would take the technology of the space age to bring it to life. Thankfully, the government had declassified details about a NASA technology whereby rockets were launched via sound impulses recorded on magnetic tape, which is wild to me that existed. This became the basis for the emergence of audio animatronics figures, which were controlled by sound frequencies, hence audio animatronics.
How did they figure this stuff out?
I don't know. This missile technology. This would be great for making some singing birds. Because you store the sound impulses on the tape and you have the computer things. It's crazy to me that they made this like cognitive leap of this technology could be used for this. It's so bizarre. Yeah, it could be used to launch a rocket. Sure. We can control old Abe too.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. So tones were recorded on tape. When played back, they would cause a metal reed to vibrate. And the moving reed would close a circuit, creating an electrical relay, which would send power to a pneumatic valve, which would operate a single simple action like the blink of an eye or the opening of a beak. Yes, it's like a Rube Goldberg science experiment. It's like the sound makes the thing vibrate, which closes a relay, which powers a pneumatic valve. And then that makes the thing move. This was a binary system because, it's on off. It can either be on or it can be off. Each figure function would have a resting position, Like a bird's beak would by default be closed when no electric current was present. And when the pulse came, it would power the mouth to open. As soon as the current ended, the beak would snap back shut. So this is why it's very on or off. There's no in between. With the advent of multi-channel tape, multiple figure functions could be recorded alongside the show's soundtrack and other programming cues. So when it was played back, the figure's actions would be perfectly synchronized to the show's needs, which is just an amazing fusion of new technologies to me. That
also, but it's also like a syncing nightmare. Thinking about you, all the machines working together. It's just stresses me out.
Yes. I mean, getting all that on multi-track tape. Well, I'll say for the Tiki Room, they used 1-inch 14-channel tape capable of producing 438 individual actions.
Wow, and that had to be pretty prohibitive back then, I would think.
Yes, you would think so.
That was pretty.
As the company boasted when the show opened, it was, quote, performed using a tape recorder of the same type used in the Polaris missile, space-age electronic wonders of audio animatronics. So, this remarkable yet primitive system required imposing rows of electronic equipment to be installed beneath the show building. So there's a basement down there with big old computers in them. And this equipment ran hot, requiring air conditioning to be installed to keep things cool. And as a result, the Tiki Room was the first Disneyland building to have air conditioning.
I'll be doggoned.
Yeah. Walt was proud of his new technological showcase, featuring it prominently on the wonderful World of Color television show in 1965 for the Disneyland 10th anniversary show. Here he is, introducing a tour of the electronics installation by the Tiki Room's host, Jose, voiced by Disney legend Wally Bogue.
You know, the same scientific equipment that guides rockets to the moon is used to make Jose and his little friends in the Tiki Room sing, talk, move, and practically think for themselves. I guess you could call him a creature of the space age. But why don't we let Jose speak for himself down at Disneyland and show the folks what goes on behind the scenes.
Buenos dias, senor and senoritas. How do you do down there? Aloha. It is showtime now in Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. Hurry to Tiki Room. Tikis make drum go boom. Magic is happening. All the birds and flowers sing. Better come see this thing. Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. Come to the Tiki Room. Hurry to the Tiki Room. Now, friends, before we see the show, I take you behind the scene for a few moments. The whole show runs from this room. That fellow is troubleshooter. He is the electric engineer, also veterinarian for all the Tiki Room actors. Maybe you would like to see how everything works, okay? Water power here goes through the pipes and runs the magic fountain. Here is the air system. Pump the air for the lifelike movement. Here is now the electric power. This is the big boss. He directs everything. Brain of big boss is here. It is called programmer. Inside is running the tape. It tells us when to talk, sing, and even to breathe. This is muscle assisting all kinds of relays on this panel. They make the cockatoo head turn left and right, make the flower to open and the tiki gods sing. And here is special thing to make coffee. Come now to other side. It is easy to understand. Audio AC rectified to pulsating DC. Drives a solenoid in the bird beaks, the flower mouse, and the etc. in the cho. The flashing light means everything is going A-OK. The buzzer. Uh-oh, the show is going to start. Come along, amigos. You gotta find a good seat.
Some of the Disney Studios' greatest talents came to work on this attraction. Rolly Crump worked on early designs, but Walt apparently thought them too crazy. Oh, you know Rolly. He's a wacky guy. Blaine Gibson sculpted more realistic birds, but with a Disney touch in the face for added expression. Mark Davis, himself a collector of oceanic art, contributed to the birds' designs as well as the singing flowers and tikis. The bird figures were finished by the great Harriet Burns, who used real feathers in completing their designs.
In a sassy fashion.
Oh, in a very sassy and stylish fashion.
Yes,
sure.
Very and composed.
Yes. Very elegant and
yes.
And yet slightly blue after dark.
That's right.
When Walt expressed a desire that the birds be so real that you could see them breathe, Harriet took inspiration from the movement and stretchability of Walt's famous blue cashmere sweater to create a custom woven fabric which could stretch and contract realistically across the bird's chest. I love that of all the things, it was that blue sweater.
Yes. Talk about iconic.
Yeah, just tired of looking at it every day. And like, oh, something good could come out of that. Mm-hmm. Another Crump contribution was the Birdmobile, which descends from the Tiki Room ceiling with 6 showgirl cockatoos styled after the Folies Bergère. Rowley sculpted the Birdmobile on site where it hangs, sitting atop a ladder to carve it. Very Sistine Chapel of Rowley.
Yes. Quite.
Just up there on the ceiling, carving away. As the show came together under the working title Legends of the Enchanted Tiki, which sounds
Love
like a very 90s Nickelodeon vibe to that. It was mocked up on one of the sound stages at the Disney Studio lot. The earlier Tea Room version of the show was intended to start with a lower key opening number based on Offenbach. So Walt brought in the Sherman Brothers songwriting team, who were still fairly new at the studio, to come up with a new kickoff piece which could get the show across. After playing the show for the Shermans and a small group, including animator and writer Larry Clemens, everyone was baffled. I love the idea of Walt being like, hey boys, I got something to show you. Look at this. And this is the Tiki Room. Like, okay.
I know. Just imagine what you would think. It would be terrifying.
Exactly. I just got to show you something. The general reaction, unsurprisingly, was, what is this thing? Walt nonplussed said, that's what you're going to tell us. You're going to write a song that explains it. Shermans, who were always up for a challenge, eventually proposed that it might help to have one of the birds act as a narrator and host to explain to viewers what's going on. They added that perhaps a parrot might work. The idea of a talking parrot might not be too much of a conceptual leap for guests, which makes sense. I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, that scans. Walt, ever eager to one-up, suggested then that they have 4 host parrots instead.
Why not?
Yeah, sure. It'd be even funnier. There are 4 of them. For a tune, the Shermans mimed their past. They recalled a calypso number they had written in 1960 for an episode of the Disney TV show about the production of Swiss Family Robinson. Now, I believe we discussed this in our Adventureland episode. You blew my mind when you uncovered this because I had never heard it before. So if people want to listen, they can go back and hear about it there in our Adventureland episode. But I do feel obligated to play just a snippet here because this is just an amazing artifact.
Cause the Swiss Family Robinson Company was brought to Tobago by Walt Disney. Loaded down with necessities they would use, microphone, lights, and camera crews. Oh yes, my friends, we had a lot of fun making Swiss Family Robinson. Yes, my friends, we had a lot of fun making Swiss Family Robinson. The folks of the island were glad to be part of Walt Disney's company. Where the trucks couldn't go, the people got, and they changed the jungle to a movie lot. When the actors arrive on location, they said it isn't work.
It's just so lovely, so effortless, so
it is
casual.
It is. It just cracks me up that first that they were assigned to write a calypso about the making of the Swiss Family Robinson.
Right.
And did so in amazing fashion. And then that it became this legendary other thing too.
I know.
It's amazing. With the concept firming up more and more, a script was developed by Larry Clemens and Marty Sklar, with plenty of help from Golden Horseshoe Jamboree regulars Wally Bogue and Fulton Burley. The Jamboree actors got in on the show as well, with Bogue performing as the Spanish-accented parrot host Jose, and Burley giving voice to the Irish bird Michael. Omnipresent voice actor Thurl Ravenscroft stepped in to voice German host Fritz, while Ernie Newton voiced the French host Pierre. Part of the secret sauce that makes the Tiki Room so amazing is veteran Disney conductor and arranger George Bruns. George Bruns.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is peak Bruns too. I mean, it's just like it's a convergence of delightful characters that really, I mean, I feel like Bruns is, part of the him and the Shermans, this kind of real, again, high period, but very distinctive.
Yeah, everybody just firing on all cylinders. I feel every time somebody mentions George Bruns, like a bass flute lick should play out of nowhere, just nice. In homage.
I like that.
He's the best. He's so good. And it doesn't get the credit I think he should, because it's just amazing stuff. And you know it when you hear it, that it's George Bruns, because it's just so good. But anyway, he directed the recording of the show's dialogue and singing at the Disney lot in February 1963. The show featured quite a cast, aside from the ones we mentioned. It also had a bunch of conventional singers and vocalists. Also had bird call and whistling experts.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, they're all over the place.
All over. Clarence Ducky Nash of Donald Duck fame was involved, as was novelty vocalist A. Purvis Pullen, also known, and that was his real name. He was known as Dr. Horatio Q. Birdbath.
This guy talked about this guy too before.
Yes. I don't forget that name. I just long to live in a time where there could be somebody named Dr. Horatio Q. Birdbath who just pops up frequently in places.
See, now that would be like a TikTok channel or Instagram.
Yeah,
it'd be like Horatio Q. Birdbath. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Not the same at all. This guy, apparently a real ornithologist, he could replicate more than 900 bird sounds. So
how do you get into that racket? You get one down.
Yeah, that's right.
Move on to the next, I guess.
Just really nail it.
Write it in your log.
Yeah. Get a little checklist going. Yep. Yeah. Today, number 867. But the show wasn't all bird sounds, of course. The showgirl birds on the Birdmobile, Walt wanted to sound human. He cited the Peruvian exotica singer Ima Sumac as inspiration. So some of the human-styled vocalists involved in the show included George Bruns' wife, Jeannie Gale, who I want to know more about, and Betty Wand, who had sung Baby Mine for Dumbo in 1941.
I'll be darned.
It's quite a connection there. One of my favorite performers in the show is the soprano orchid in the Hawaiian War Chant number. Sounds like she's doing a riff on the lady in the Star Trek credits theme, I always thought as a kid. Because she's just kind of like out there.
Yeah. I think I was always so scared of this sequence that I did not pay attention to it as a child. So when it came back, I thought that was a thing that had been put in for some reason.
Oh, wow. You were just zoned out from
it's like, did that terror. One thing come in? Why would they do that? But no, it's there the whole time.
No, yeah.
It's
the
very
singer
loud.
Behind that performance, that riveting performance, none other than Norma Zimmer, a.k.a. the Champagne Lady from the Lawrence Welk Show.
Wow. Okay.
So, I mean, man, bringing in the big guns.
Yeah.
What's really amazing about the Tiki Room is how quickly they got it done. From the time it was written and recorded, it was only about 3 months until it made its debut in Adventureland, which is crazy. There was a press preview on the Disney lot on April 10th, 1963, where invited guests saw a performance of the show on a soundstage. I love they keep fitting it out on a soundstage, just walking into this building and seeing the Tiki Room.
They would always, they would Yeah, I guess it did that before they had their big facilities out in Glendale. They just always be putting stuff up on the soundstage.
Yeah.
It's scary. And they have Lincoln on the soundstage too, or somewhere. Where was
Yeah, I
he
think
at?
so. Yeah, because this would have been pre-Mapo for sure. So that's where they would mock things up in latter days, but this was earlier than that. Anyway, the menagerie was relocated to Disneyland, and they held a larger media preview for more than 40 reporters from a variety of outlets on June 19th, prior to the grand opening on June 23rd. So things moved fast in those days.
Yeah, they did.
Interestingly, guests were not able to experience the Tiki Room via standard Disneyland ticket book coupons. Walt was such a believer in the show, and the show was considered such a risk that Walt had funded it all himself. So instead of being owned by the Disney company, Disneyland Inc., or whatever it was owned by WED Enterprises, the precursor to Walt Disney Imagineering, which at the time was Walt's private company. They had this elaborate labyrinthine setup where, everything was such a risk that, Roy couldn't justify the stockholders' money on such shenanigans. So Walt had his own company, which he would do the crazy stuff through. And that's how
I love it. It's like total commitment. You got the,
Yes, exactly. So the Tiki Room required its own separate ticket that would go to WED Enterprises instead of to Disney. At opening, this was a 75-cent ticket, which was a whopping sum, considering an e-ticket at the time was only 50 cents. So you could go on the Matterhorn, go on, an e-ticket for 50 cents, but Tiki Room, 75. That's going to cost you. The combined need to sell guests on the value of a Tiki Room ticket, as well as to explain what the then groundbreaking show even was, resulted in the creation of the Barker Bird, an animatronic macaw voiced by Wally Bogue that sat above the Tiki Room's turnstiles and invited passing guests to come in and enjoy the show. And Jeff, we're going to have to just do a whole segment sometime about the great tradition of Disney Barker Birds.
When you go into Disneyland, we grew up in Florida, so our Barker Birds are different. But the one there, you cannot ignore where it was. I would imagine it would be just in everybody's face. So,
yeah, absolutely dominant position.
Yeah,
for sure. Sponsoring the show at opening was United Airlines, which was happy to sell guests and potential flyers on the romance of the South Seas. The sponsorship lasted until 1976, after which Dole entered the scene, and that's a whole other story. Tiki Room saga doesn't end here either. Walt initially tried to pitch Coca-Cola on presenting a variation of the show at the 1964-65 New York World's Fair, but the price tag was too steep for Coke's marketing budget at the time. And there is some art out there for this show which looked like it would have been just pretty great, unsurprisingly. Of course, the Tiki Room became a critical part of Walt Disney World's opening lineup in 1971 and debuted at Tokyo Disneyland in 1983. These shows have seen many changes over the years, which we'll dive into some other time. At Disneyland, the show has stayed mostly the same, despite being shortened by about 4 minutes in the 1990s. Still a treasure, though, a magical and transportive experience. So the next time you're in the park, be sure to take the time to stop and enter a world of joyous songs and wondrous miracles. Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room.
Michael, let me count the ways that Disneyland changed the game. I mean, think about all those carnival barkers that thought Disney was crazy because he had one entrance. Was spending money on landscaping and all the other things that didn't exactly directly earn money. It was, of course, a game changer. But Michael, what about the Plaza Pavilion?
Oh, yeah. Atmosphere everywhere. What kind of rube wouldn't monetize every square foot of their park? Come on.
That's right. I mean, you got to make a buck.
Exactly.
And it just don't pay to have it be pretty. Anyway, among a profile of the different culinary offerings in the week of the park's opening, the Independent Press Telegram called the quick service restaurant at the end of Main Street, quote, a completely new conception of high-quality, low-cost food service.
Wow.
And though that may seem bombastic, and perhaps it is, in other ways it was a very interesting case study in the newly created world of themed entertainment. The building had two separate facades facing the front and back to properly adapt to the lands they were in. Whereas in Walt Disney World, you get the Crystal Palace at the same spot that could coexist in both lands as a Victorian presence. This version would have the Victorian front and a rather thatched island feel on the back. I feel like they showed this often on the TV show, or at least I just remember it frequently being pointed out, or maybe I just noticed it. But yes, it was kind of omnipresent back then in the day.
Yeah, it's a really cool way of solving a problem. And, kitchens are expensive. You don't want to build more kitchens than you have to build. So just build one nice kitchen and then run 2 restaurants off of it.
All
Makes
right.
sense.
Well, at the beginning, you would order your food, move through the space, pick it up, and either dine on the lawn in Main Street, which is boring, or on a delightful terrace in Adventureland, looking back on a building with a completely different feel and towards the world-famous Jungle Cruise. What a cool idea.
Yeah, what a great spot to sit and enjoy your lunch.
That's right. Well, at the beginning, the back patio offered views of the Jungle Cruise and like basic bistro furniture and umbrellas. But as was the case in those early days of Disneyland, the plussin crept in. They were plussin like crazy, Michael.
Yeah, just every cent that came in the door got plowed right back in.
That's right.
Back into the park. As soon as they had any income at all, they started building more.
Well, eventually a small ensemble would serenade happy eaters with island stylings, and even later a small stage would be built to offer even more ornate island entertainment. But was it enough? In the early 1960s, the world-famous Jungle Cruise was to undergo a critical transformation, which would change it and its progeny forever, with bathing elephants and the wackiness. They put the wackiness in there.
Yeah, Mark shows up, sneaking in that wackiness.
That's right.
Making Tony Baxter crazy, but he's got to be wacky. He can't be stopped.
He cannot be stopped. More fun was on the way to Adventureland. There was going to be a Swiss family treehouse based on one of our favorite Disney classics, and of course, Stouffer's at Disneyland. As Michael pointed out in the Tiki Room segment, old Vernon, Grandpa Vern, or Uncle Vern, I guess, Uncle Vernon Stouffer, began to smell what Walt was cooking all the way across the country and signed on to sponsor a whole bunch of restaurants, including exotic fare and European and American kitchens. Michael, I realized after the fact they signed on to sponsor the French market. That's what I was missing there.
Oh, okay.
That's our European kitchen right there.
Yeah, when you think Stouffer's, you think exotic.
Yes.
Foreign cuisine. Make a good lasagna. What can you say?
That's true. Vernon, well, like a French bread pizza, So, yeah.
Indeed.
Overseas.
Man. Going to Disneyland, having a French bread pizza at the French market. How great would that be?
Who knows? Maybe they invented it. They're like the Doritos. But Vernon, for his part, was very bullish on the prospect, sharing and perhaps oversharing with the press. The Cleveland Press reported after their visit, Walt and Vernon, that is, in August of 1961, where Walt also surveyed and gave his opinions about the Cleveland Zoo to Vernon, who was the president of the Zoological Society. That Vern, he was just, he was a man of...
Need to start researching him. He sounds like quite a guy.
Anyway, the Cleveland paper noted that Walt was not satisfied with his food lessees, and acquaintances introduced him to Stouffer, whose farthest western restaurant at the time was in Chicago. Stouffer, having the geographical doors blown off, posited that he may move into Los Angeles and San Francisco now, saying, "Surely this is a new challenge for Stouffers." But the biggest problem surely was exotic foods. What would they do? No lasagna? No French bread pizzas and mac and cheese? How could they cook the Polynesian fare they were tasked with? Michael, leave Walt Disney, the man, to hire Stouffers to give us the flavors of Hawaii. That scans.
Exactly. It all tastes the same to me, boys.
They got chili over there? We're going.
Yeah. We got all different kinds of chili.
Well, despite the non-restauranting of the Tiki Room, Stouffer's was going to be put to task on those Polynesian foods at the Tahitian Terrace, an outdoor dining and entertainment venue which would quickly raise the bar on Disney's entertainment and culinary offerings. Before the Blue Bayou arrived, this was the place. Unless you were Walt, then you'd probably head over to the Red Wagon to get your Swift's meats. But this was the haute cuisine of Disneyland for a few years.
Yeah, well, you've got exotic food, you've got entertainment, you've got a themed environment. What else do you need, really?
The terrace was indeed a very magical place, tucked in a grotto between the beloved Tiki Room and the rivers of the world-famous Jungle Cruise. I could tell you more, but why not read you the wonderfully written story of the Tahitian Terrace from the back of a 1960s menu. Welcome to the wondrous realm of Polynesia, the Tahitian Terrace. Here Walt Disney has opened wide the portals to an enchanting island world across the blue Pacific, a world of romance, beauty, and exciting entertainment. Towering high above you is an amazing tree, a tree that grew, in less than a year, to a height of 35 feet through a secret formula of Walt Disney and his Imagineers. The branches of this species Disney dendron are laden with more than 14,775 handcrafted leaves and fiery-colored flowers that bloom perpetually. Today, this tree is Disneyland's second largest of this rare unnatural species, exceeded only by the Swiss family treehouse. Nestled beneath the tumbling waterfall is a matchless stage setting, a stage whose curtain is a cascade of water, and whose floodlights are a leaping flame of fire burning on the water itself. For your summer evening entertainment, the falls magically draw aside, and out from behind the waters, sarong-clad natives appear to perform the swaying rhythms and amazing rituals of the islands, the hypnotic barefoot firewalk and thrilling fire knife dance, and the traditional grass-skirted twist of Samoa, Tahiti, and Hawaii. The dedicated student will note how the storytelling technique varies from island to island. Here a hip movement, there an entire torso. This unique amphitheater, Disneyland's Tahitian Terrace, is open on summer afternoons for your dining pleasure, and every summer evening for dining and Polynesian shows. Sunday evening, dining only. Michael, does that make you want to go?
Oh, it does. So many details. Any live entertainment that comes out from behind a water curtain,
yes,
is by default like the best themed entertainment available in the world.
And having the Disney dendron, of course.
They loved nothing more back in the day than the gag of "We Built a Tree." That was their favorite thing.
I love that gag. Oh, man, yeah.
I didn't realize there was another exemplar of the species besides the Swiss family. I didn't know this was dubbed a Disney dendron.
It was. I know. It's one of two at the time, and then of course there's more now. And a little kind of foreshadowing of not only the waterfall curtain and the tropical serenade, but the sunshine tree itself, Michael.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Very, very similar vibes and the way they talk about it, for sure.
Well, Walt, came in and made his notes. He wanted to raise the Disney dendron to not be too low at the last minute, which I don't. Looking at pictures, I can't imagine it any lower. It's very low upon the crowd. Is the tree, and he also wanted the waterfall curtain. That was his thing. So he wanted people to come out of a waterfall. That's that Walt, man.
He just knows what's up. I just can picture it with the fire on the water. That's just the best gag. I love it.
These were famously things that our favorite podcast subject, Admiral Joe Fowler, of course, said can do too. This was during kind of a final presentation. They were sending him to sign off on things, and Walt wished for the tree to be taller, so Fowler had it cut in half and raised, and they just made a waterfall curtain. This was, just a little bit of Disney magic, and they could just be nimble and do that kind of thing.
Those are the days.
Yes. The Tahitian Terrace was a new kind of entertainment from the park, which was pitching to adult audiences and asking folks to come out to Disneyland after dark. And it was part of a new $7 million addition to the park that included an entire redo of Adventureland and the beginnings of what would become New Orleans Square, a la that big hole, Michael.
That's right. What are you going to put in it?
Walt wined and dined local press and tastemakers in July of 1962, treating them to the park on a Saturday visit. Nadine Edwards, a Los Angeles reporter, beamed about the whole trip. Quote, "Our first stop was Stouffer's renovated restaurant," this being the Plaza Pavilion, I assume. "Their mouth-watering fried chicken is something not too soon to be forgotten. They also serve a chocolate cake, which is flown in daily from Ohio." I really can't believe this, however, since it tasted out of this world and not as close by as Ohio.
Oh.
This, of course, isn't the only restaurant. There are others, as well as many aromatic food stands, which you don't want to miss. Nadine, she loved that chocolate cake. They were flying that chocolate cake around.
She was into it. Yeah, that is exotic. It's some exotic cake.
They can't make a cake in California. It's like it's like the pizza
Illegal.
water for the pizza dough.
It's right, or the bagels.
Right.
Yeah, no, only in Ohio can that cake be raised.
Vernon needs to proof it himself as he ponders the additions to the zoo.
He comes in with his toothpicks.
That's right.
Sticks them in the cake. Yeah.
Well, Disneyland After Dark was in full effect for the gaggle who was treated to fireworks over Sleeping Beauty Castle and Tinkerbell flying. But the finale to the evening was a show at the Tahitian Terrace where Edwards reported, quote, "We watched the Tahitian dancers perform their primitive and sensuous dances." This was one of the many, inappropriate descriptions that would grace the papers. A lot of the innocent folk of the islands and their pure tradition and innocence on display.
Oh, gee.
Walt was there. He spoke from the terrace and even spoke of the haunted house on the way to Disneyland. To be there on that night. Walt just glad-handing and talking, musing about what the Haunted Mansion is going to be at the Tahitian Terrace before the show.
Yeah, spilling the details.
Oh, but I'm hungry. I chose not to eat the fried chicken and the chocolate cake. What would we eat? While Edwards reported fresh pineapple slices and strawberries, I'm looking for something more robust. I want to see what Stouffer's does with these exotic flavors. Well, at lunch, one could order the specialty of the house, which was the Polynesian combination platter of barbecue ribs, crisp fried shrimp tempura, chicken almond, with Polynesian vegetables and rice for $1.85, Michael.
Mercy.
You could order the steak specialty, a broiled teriyaki steak, for $3.25. The catamaran salad was a fresh pineapple boat filled with chicken salad garnished with orange slices, shredded coconut, and sliced almonds.
Wow.
And if all these flavors are just too darn exotic, you have a Monte Cristo sandwich later on, that signature Disney food item, or a sliced turkey sandwich. And to finish, a rum and raisin ice cream wafer or a Polynesian rum cake would run you 40 cents. And the Planters Punch Tahitian, the signature beverage, would be 50 cents, but be served in a tall frosted glass with flower memento. So
Ooh.
you take some. It's a signature bubbler, the signature sipper of the day.
I know, before there were glow cubes.
That's right.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, it's said over and over that Walt wanted, affordable meals, Michael, and it just kind of makes you think about how nice of an idea that is. That he thought that.
It's a good concept, good for your bottom line and good for guest satisfaction. Repeat business.
Yeah. This is from a menu that I found on Yesterland. I don't think it's the very first menu that the Terrace had. I'd be interested in seeing that one. Maybe they had a mashed potato volcano or something. I don't know what they were done.
That would be incredible.
It would be. This one seems it could have had the fingerprints of one Hideo Amaraki, nicknamed Indian Amaraki, who became the chef at the Terrace in 1964. Now, he would go on in just a few years to be executive chef at Disneyland. More on that in a moment. But this guy had one of the most amazing lives I've ever heard of. Amaraki was born in Maui, and his father worked sugarcane fields. In his school and during his trial as a semi-pro baseball player for the Cleveland Indians, he was given his nickname Indian, even though he was a third-generation Japanese U.S. citizen. He famously was one of the only people to be allowed to have his nickname put on his name tag, which was a no-no at the time. So he was fully called Indian. Indian left Maui in 1935 to study engineering, worked in grape fields and at a produce market until he was rounded up and moved to a concentration camp in Poston, Arizona at the onset of World War II. During his time in the camp, Indian became a taxidermist. According to him, quote, "My idea was to build a stuffed animal museum in the camp. There were plenty of animals in the area. I got started, but I never finished. I guess it's good to stay busy, Michael."
You got to look for your fun anywhere you can find it.
Thankfully, he was released because A, it's a ridiculous idea, and because B, his brother served in the military. He then went to New York, then to Chicago, where he worked on building B-17 Bombay doors, before, interestingly enough, starting a Jewish restaurant in the south side of Chicago. He did that for 10 years and then moved to California, where he helped start and serve as chef at the Kono Hawaii restaurant for 8 years in Santa Ana, before Walt poached him for Disneyland. To quote Indian, quote, "I took a cut in pay, but when I saw the cleanliness of the kitchen, the equipment, and the way things were run, I was happy."
I bet that Kona was a place to see.
Oh, it was, Michael. He would roast a pig. He would put the pig on a spit all the time, and he said they wouldn't let him bury the pig, so they just had it right in the middle of the room. They had all kinds of performers. It was a truly glorious mid-century place.
We used to be the country.
That's right. Aramaki's rise to executive chef at Disneyland mirrored Disney's desire to take control back of the food concession from the lessees, an agreement that had come to pass because of lack of funding and experience. By 1966, Disney was ready and began to get control back of their restaurants, starting with Tahitian Terrace. Sorry, Vernon. We're taking it back.
You're out, Vernon. It's funny that they always do this, but then wind up, it doesn't last long. Like with the hotels at Walt Disney World, they tried the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the experience. We'll let other people do it. And then they're like, no, we're going to do it.
We can't do this. Yeah. Of course, Aramaki's rise was just beginning. He would continue to cook and develop creations for Disneyland, serving dignitaries like Emperor Hirohito and Empress Nagako of Japan, as well as Crown Prince Akihiko and Princess Michiko. He would also help with the opening of Tokyo Disneyland, Epcot Center, and all kinds of special events and productions, always trying to keep food affordable, as was Walt's mandate, until his retirement. And he was inducted as a Disney legend in 2005. What a guy.
What a dude was he. Absolutely. What a career.
Mm-hmm. Well, any fan of the old Disneyland anthology TV show would remember the Tahitian Terrace from the iconic 1962 special Disneyland After Dark, one of our favorites, where Walt really gives special attention to it. You can tell, in the show, he's like, you guys got to see this. Like, this is the thing. So he's, loving it.
Yeah.
And of course, this gets repurposed years later in our beloved Pirates of the Caribbean: To the World of Tomorrow. The same footage.
Yeah, it gets dropped in there too. Yeah.
As Michael has mentioned, Walt had his own special relationship with the islands, but this was furthered even more by the 1956 release of the People and Places documentary Samoa. Walt must have been so interested he scouted out local talent, because evidently he found out about local performer Pete Shanoa from someone seeing him perform at a local fair. Pete, who was born in American Samoa, moved to California at the age of 18 and was a performer who would spin flaming knives, like one does, and work to preserve and share the Samoan traditions he grew up with. Walt had Pete up to his office to learn more about his customs and hired him to perform at the plaza on that back patio before forming a group called the Royal Tahitians that would perform in residence at the Tahitian Terrace. Firewalks, fire knives, slap dances. You gotta have the slap dance. All kinds of things would this group do, and Pete was at the forefront. The Tahitian Terrace show would be presented as a journey through the islands, representing a diverse group of cultures presented together as a kind of travelogue. A very clever little narrative device. Was it?
I love that they were like, giving credence to that. I mean, they were paying attention to what they were presenting. It just wasn't stuff, they were really giving credit to the culture. That's neat.
Yeah, this kind of mid 50s to mid 60s Walt Disney Company is my favorite. As the more we've done this podcast, where they're doing People and Places, and they're doing the educational edutainment, Michael. They're doing a lot of this historical movies, and they're working. They want to do the Liberty Street and Edison Square, and yeah, it's nice.
It's a really great window. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pete and his wife Portia would form Tiare Productions, a group that would become a preeminent Polynesian production company. Pete would teach dance and continue on at the Terrace for years. By 1971, a review in a paper mentioned another troupe called Kaui Pono's Polynesians, but this troupe would not grace the Terrace long. Led by another husband and wife duo of Pono and Kaui Brandt, this team was bound for the Polynesian Village Resort. And with consultation from Pete and Portia, another team was on its way across the East Coast. By this time, diners could enjoy the Kaulana o Kahiki Lanai, which was beef, pork, and spinach steamed in tea leaves, as well as the ever-present shrimp tempura, which would show up in recipes with more MSG than you could shake a stick at. So people loved that shrimp tempura, Michael.
Oh, man, I'm always down for some shrimp tempura. Absolutely.
In that way that it so often worked during the 70s, Disneyland would be sent across the country to Walt Disney World. I mean, a lot of those entertainers just went to Disney World. And then things would kind of filter back to inform Disneyland. So by the 1980s, podcast favorite Kikoman, who had sponsored the Adventureland Veranda, was brought in as a new sponsor at the Tahitian Terrace. And the gang moved in. More relevant, more Disney, I guess. The last act of the Terrace would be a show called The Legend of the Island Jewel, featuring Mickey, Donald, Roger Rabbit, and Goofy. And I bet that was something.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I love they got Roger Rabbit in there. That's great.
That's right. Well, alas, and somehow inconceivably, someone thought it would be a good idea to close this magically touched place, and did so in 1993, when Aladdin's Oasis overtook the space and was operational only a few years as a dinner show before going to the purgatory of seasonal operation and mostly sitting empty, or being a venue for character meets. And that's how we found it when we first went to Disneyland, just sitting there, just kind of right by the Tiki Room, the Aladdin's Oasis, Michael.
It's roped off, yeah.
Why would you do such a thing?
I don't know. I mean, you would just think having the Terrace there would just be a surefire money maker, crowd pleaser of a thing. So it's just baffling.
Thankfully, Purgatory is not forever, and in 2018 it was announced that the Oasis would be replaced by the Tropical Hideaway, a place that more closely matches the adjacent Tiki Room and preserves some of that Tahitian Terrace spirit a little bit better. Of course, Walt Disney World got more than their fair share of this kind of theming with the Polynesian Village Resort and their own Adventureland and Tropical Serenade, but Hong Kong Disneyland would inherit its own Tahitian Terrace. And even though it's a short order place, you can still go and regale in its thatched beauty if you have the airfare. And the sign, I mean, it's just so Tahitian Terrace-y, Michael.
Yeah, it's definitely a name and a concept that has ingrained itself in the DNA of the parks for sure.
And don't forget Tahitian Treat, a wonderful beverage.
Never forget.
For their part, Pete and Portia Shinoa, Pete hung out at the terrace until it closed its waterfall curtain glory in the 90s, but their work continued on. They performed at the 1984 Olympics with their son, who would go on to be the wrestler Samoa Joe, and their production company still lives on through a related company founded in its wake called Tupua Productions, which is still very active, still bringing this culture and traditions to people all over the country, which is just a wonderful outcome and kind of a great legacy that Disney was a part of, Michael.
That's very cool. I'm so glad. I love these acts that just continue on and on and on. I mean, Mariachi Cobra is another one that springs to mind, of these groups that leapt the country to follow the opening of new parks, but they just sort of persist and continue to like inspire and educate and entertain. It's great.
Well, at this time, we've just got to go back behind our own waterfall curtain and bid this wonderful vision of the past aloha and goodbye, and sadly blow our last conch shell, Michael. So that ends this journey to the islands for now. Michael, I have thought of many other things we could talk about. This is one of those things. This is like the frontier. So many of these theme shows, we are just starting here, and we should do another frontier show. But we're definitely gonna do another one of these because there's a lot more to say. Absolutely, there are so many more tendrils of Polynesia throughout the Disney sphere, and you mentioned that, of course, the Polynesian Resort down in good old Bay Lake, Florida, and we've talked about that in the past. You can go back and find those shows as well, but there are just so many wonderful experiences and so many thematic times it comes up, so plenty to talk about, as you say. Indeed. Well, it's the time of the podcast where we can check in with our Patreon, see who has signed up. It's been a while, Michael, since we've chatted in front of you, our audience. Is anybody signed up for the Patreon?
Yes, we'd like to welcome Jay to the Patreon. Welcome. Always happy to have a new member. They'll, of course, be signing up for all sorts of little goodies. Early access to the episodes, of course, and little Pack-O Progress City swag, which is fun, but access to some other things, too. We've had a couple of windfalls of late, thanks to some of our generous donors. Some music, a copious amount of music from Tokyo Disneyland that we've shared with our patrons, and some documents and other things too. But also Patreon backers at any level get access to our private Discord server, which is a lot of fun, a lot of good people goofing around, talking about things Disney and not, and having a lot of fun. So we hope you will join us. And of course, at the silver level, you can join us for our monthly live stream where we get together and show some rare photos and video and hang out and have a lively chat with some good people too. So that's always fun. So if you're interested in any of this, you can join us at patreon.com/ProgressCityUSA.
We thank those of you who have and supported us through all of these years. Looking forward to some new episodes. Michael, what do you think? I don't know. We could talk about anything.
I know. I'm getting ready to get into it. I'm really looking forward to it, and I really want to make. We're on the verge of a new year. I've been kind of quiet this year, but I think we can really turn it up. There are a lot of people we need to talk to, and a lot of things we need to talk about. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully, get back in the groove and get some episodes flowing.
Be nice. And we've had a busy year outside of the podcast this year, but hopefully we can find new rhythms and return to some podcasting.
Yeah, life finds a way to be hectic sometimes, and
we ain't going nowhere.
But we're sticking around, and sadly no holiday episode this year. But we've just run out of time, I believe. But we will be back next year and have plenty to say, I promise.
Well, to keep a Christmas party really fresh, sometimes there have to be fallow seasons. So, our Christmas party, it gets pretty wild down there in Progress City. And I feel like I'm still kind of cleaning up the plastic champagne flutes. And, that somebody messed up our color wheel. I've got to fix that. It gets, the wassail and all the stuff. It just kind of sticks to surfaces. There's a lot we got to work on our cleaning budget and all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to keep things fresh, and so we'll definitely do that. I heard from our wacky neighbor Jay just the other day. He said he'd be game for a return appearance at our next party. So,
well, now that's really exciting to think.
So that's exciting. So we'll be back. Absolutely.
Well, until the next episode, we want to thank you all and wish you all a happy new year. Thanks for listening to us all these years, and we look forward to joining you next year with some new interviews and episodes. So long, everyone.
Number 12 day of Christmas the best, and the best stuff always come last. Number 12 day of Christmas, my tutu give to me. 12
television, 11 missionary. Amen, 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 amen. 10 Canadian, 9 pound a boy, 8 ukulele, 7 ship for swimming, 6 Buddha lesson, 5 stinking pig, 4 tawale, 3 dry squid, 2 coconut,
and 1 minor bird in 1 papaya tree.
They call it progress, progress. Our time is at an end. We'll be seeing you again next time at progress, progress. We'll meet in Progress City, USA. You've been listening to the Progress City Radio Hour, created by the folks at ProgressCityUSA.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at Progress City USA. If you want to contact us, please write podcast at ProgressCityUSA.com. The Progress City Radio Hour is recorded at Arbor Ridge Studios in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, on the web at arborridgestudios.com. The title theme was composed by Jeff Crawford, whose music can be found at jeffcrawfordmusic.com. Please join us again soon for another Progress City Radio Hour. They call it progress, progress.
Christmas.